Street Fighter II dominated arcades until Mortal Kombat arrived in 1992 with digitized fighters and brutal fatalities. It shocked players, sparked huge controversies about game violence, and grew into a franchise worth more than $5 billion worldwide. This is the evolution of Mortal Kombat. In 1991, Street Fighter II ruled the arcades. Midway Games wanted their own hit and asked Ed Boon and John Tobias to create a combat game within 1 year. With a $1 million budget, they first looked at making something similar to the 1984 game Karate Champ. Midway then pushed for a game based on the upcoming film Universal Soldier with martial arts star Jean-Claude Van Damme. But Van Damme had already signed with another studio for a different game that never released. With that plan gone, Boon and Tobias went back to their original idea. They built the full game in just 10 months, with 6 male fighters, and later added Sonya Blade because the team felt it needed a female character. Tobias filmed actors with his own camcorder and turned the footage into digitized sprites with about 300 frames of animation each. One of the fighters, Johnny Cage, became a playful jab at Van Damme. His famous split punch came from a scene in Bloodsport. The team tested several names for the game, including Kumite, Dragon Attack, Death Blow, and Fatality. The final name happened by accident when someone wrote a letter K over the word combat on a whiteboard. A designer saw it and said, "Mortal Kombat," and the name stayed. Fun fact, Ed Boon disliked moments where a player was stunned or dizzied in fighting games, but he still liked the idea of giving players a free hit. His answer was to let players perform a fatality after the winner was already decided. A simple punch would feel flat, so these finishers became far more creative and much more gory.
Flawless victory.
Mortal Kombat launched in arcades in October 1992 and grabbed gamers by the pockets. The game arrived with 7 playable fighters, including a Shaolin monk, a Hollywood action star, and the now iconic rival ninjas Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Goro served as the intimidating sub-boss, with Shang Tsung waiting at the end. Each character had their own moves and a unique fatality, but the real shock came from the violence. Players could tear out hearts, uppercut enemies into spikes, and decapitate opponents in blasts of pixelated blood. The level of graphic content was something players had never seen before in 1992. The reaction was explosive. Some loved the brutality. Others feared it was too extreme. Politicians and parents were outraged, leading to heated debates about video game violence. By 1993, Mortal Kombat became the main example in discussions about violent games, helping lead to the creation of the ESRB rating system. The game then hit home consoles on September 13, 1993, a day marketed as Mortal Monday. It played a major role in the console wars. On the SNES, Nintendo censored the blood, turning it gray and removing some fatalities. Meanwhile, Sega Genesis offered a blood code that restored the game's original gore and sold far better as a result. Home console versions sold more than 6 million units worldwide, with most of the sales coming from the Genesis. Another 1 million copies were sold for the Game Boy, and the arcade version made over 300 million in its first year alone. Since then, it has become a cultural phenomenon, inspiring movies, comics, card games, and even a touring martial arts stage show featuring Mortal Kombat characters. Fun fact, in the original Mortal Kombat, players could fight a hidden character named Reptile by performing a fatality on the pit stage. A shadow had to pass over the moon, and the player needed to take 0 damage in the match. Reptile later became a playable character in Mortal Kombat II. 1 year after the original game shocked the world, Mortal Kombat II arrived in arcades in 1993. The roster grew from 7 to 12 playable fighters, adding characters like the royal assassin Kitana, her twisted clone Melina, and Baraka with his retractable arm blades. The sequel ran on a new engine with faster gameplay, sharper visuals, and twice as many special moves. It also introduced secret elements that became series classics, babalities, friendships, and hidden fighters like Smoke and Noob Sabit. The story expanded too, led by the rise of Shao Kahn, whose booming voice and hammer strikes became unforgettable. Mortal Kombat II exploded in popularity, earning more than $50 million in arcades within months. Its 1994 home release pushed the series even higher. Launched on the SNES, Genesis, Game Boy, and Game Gear, the sequel became one of the best-selling games of the year. It avoided the censorship issues that plagued the first game, and this time, the blood flowed freely on every console. Released in April 1995, Mortal Kombat III pushed the series into a new age. The old temple arenas were gone. Instead, players fought through a modern world that had fallen under Shao Kahn's control. Mortal Kombat 3 used improved filming and sprite work, giving characters smoother movement and larger on-screen models. A new run button made fights faster and more aggressive. The game also added combat codes and hidden menus, letting players change match settings, character variants, and even unlock secret minigames. For the first time, Mortal Kombat introduced chain combos, while new fighters included the resurrected Queen Sindel, the Shaman Nightwolf, and the cyber assassin Cyrax and Sector. Mortal Kombat 3 also added animalities, where a fighter changed into an animal for the final strike, and Mercy, which let players give their opponent a tiny bit of health before finishing the match. Some fans complained about missing favorites like Scorpion, Johnny Cage, and Raiden, but the overall reaction was strong. Critics praised the speed and intensity, and Mortal Kombat 3 ruled the arcades through 1995. It later sold millions on the SNES, Genesis, and PlayStation. Fun fact: Mortal Kombat reached far beyond gaming in 1995. The live-action movie earned over $120 million on a $20 million budget, beating the Street Fighter movie released 1 year earlier. Before 2000, the only video game movie that earned more than Mortal Kombat was Pokémon. Besides the main games, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 arrived in 1995. It was the first major update in the series, bringing back characters like Scorpion, Kitana, and Reptile, while making classic Sub-Zero and Ermac unlockable through the Ultimate Combat codes. It also added a 2-on-2 mode, a tougher master setting, and more balanced combos. 1 year later came Mortal Kombat Trilogy, a huge collection that combined fighters and stages from the first 3 games and introduced the Aggressor meter. In 1997, Midway released the first of several bad spin-offs, Mortal Kombat Mythologies, Sub-Zero for Nintendo 64 and PlayStation. This was followed by Mortal Kombat Special Forces on PlayStation in 2000, and Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks on PlayStation 2 and Xbox in 2005. More spin-offs, updated versions, mobile games, and collections would follow, but let's focus on the main games instead. The last Mortal Kombat made for arcades was Mortal Kombat 4 in 1997, running on Midway's Zeus hardware. It dropped digitized actors and moved fully into 3D. The game's plot leaned heavily on cinematic storytelling, featuring pre-rendered 3D cutscenes for the first time in the series. Another first was the ability to draw weapons like maces, daggers, and hammers. These weapons could be thrown, stolen, or dropped mid-fight, adding a new layer of strategy. Stages were also more active, letting you send rivals off cliffs or into traps. And of course, the blood and gore were back. Fatalities were now in cinematic set pieces, heads crushed in real time, bodies impaled, and skulls shattered in 3D. As arcades faded, the game moved to Nintendo 64, PlayStation, PC, and Game Boy Color. Mortal Kombat Gold in 1999 added more fighters and sharper visuals. Mortal Kombat 4 was not as loved as the older games, but it kept the series alive during a major turning point in gaming history. It sold over 1 million copies, helped the jump from 2D to 3D, and introduced important lore like Quan Chi and the Elder Gods. Fun fact: The second live-action movie, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, came out in 1997. It followed the story of Mortal Kombat III and was so poorly received that the planned third movie was canceled. Critics gave it a 4% score on Rotten Tomatoes, with one calling it an exercise in the art of genuinely beautiful trash cinema. Producer Lawrence Kasanoff later revealed that the film was released unfinished, with many effects not ready. 2002 marked a fresh chapter with Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. With arcades gone, Ed Boon and the new Midway Chicago team rebuilt the series for home consoles like PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube. A new 3D engine replaced the simpler mechanics of Mortal Kombat 4. Each fighter now used 3 distinct fighting styles. The roster expanded to 21 fighters, mixing returning icons with bold newcomers, such as Kenshi, a blind swordsman with a telekinetic blade, the drunken master Bo Rai Sho, and the vampire Nitara. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance also introduced Conquest Mode, a single-player path that taught moves and expanded the lore, and the Crypt, a giant vault where players spent in-game currency to open coffins packed with secrets, art, skins, and hidden fighters. Critics praised the reboot. Game Informer called it the most complete Mortal Kombat in years, and IGN said it was a rebirth worthy of its name. With more than 2 million sales, it delivered the comeback Mortal Kombat needed. Fun fact, the 5-year gap after Mortal Kombat 4 happened partly because co-creator John Tobias and several others left Midway during a low point for the series. The TV show Mortal Kombat Conquest was canceled in 1999. Mortal Kombat Special Forces was widely disliked, and Mortal Kombat Advance was a disaster. Ed Boon stayed, regrouped, and pushed for Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, which ended up reviving the franchise. Released in October 2004, Mortal Kombat Deception continued the story after Deadly Alliance. Fights landed on PlayStation 2 and Xbox, and for the first time the series stepped into online multiplayer. Well, except for GameCube players who had to stay offline. Stage fatalities returned after being missing in Deadly Alliance. For the first time in the series, Mortal Kombat offered an open-world experience. Conquest Mode let players travel through all 6 realms, train with masters like Bo Rai Cho and Scorpion, and uncover side missions and hidden lore. Mortal Kombat Deception also added mini-games such as Chess Combat, a strategy mode where fighters act as pieces, and Puzzle Combat, a playful twist on Tetris with classic characters. The game earned strong reviews and huge sales. It won several Fighting Game of the Year awards and became Midway's fastest-selling title, shipping 1 million units in its first week. Fun fact, in France, the title was changed to Mortal Kombat Mystification because the word deception in French means disappointment, and who wants to play a game called Disappointment?
If left unchecked, their intensifying combat would weaken and shatter the realms.
For more than a decade, warriors from every realm had battled for survival. Gods had fallen, empires had collapsed, and now the saga was reaching its final chapter. Released in October 2006 for PlayStation 2, Xbox, and later Nintendo Wii, Mortal Kombat Armageddon was designed as the grand conclusion to the storyline that began in 1992. It came with a massive roster of more than 60 fighters, every character from the series so far. Armageddon felt like a tribute to 15 years of history, myth, and brutal fights. Players could even build their own fighter with the Create a Fighter system and design their own fatalities, adding a personal twist to the chaos. And interestingly, Armageddon introduced Motor Combat, a Mario Kart-style racing mode with tiny versions of Scorpion, Melina, and Sub-Zero speeding toward fatality-style finish lines. Many fans viewed Armageddon as a fitting farewell. Mortal Kombat Armageddon sold over 1.8 million copies and marked the end of the franchise's original timeline. Fun fact, or actually this is more of a terrible fact. On November 22, 1997, in South Norwalk, Connecticut, 13-year-old Noah Wilson was stabbed in the chest and killed by another teen. His mother sued Midway, saying the attacker copied a Cyrax move from Mortal Kombat, but the case was dismissed. In 2008, Mortal Kombat crossed paths with DC Comics, creating one of the strangest entries in the franchise. Made for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, the game placed fighters like Raiden and Shang Tsung beside Batman and Superman. It featured a two-sided story campaign that ended with Raiden and Superman teaming up to defeat Dark Khan. The roster offered 11 Mortal Kombat fighters and 11 DC heroes and villains, each with new rage abilities tied to the crossover. Because DC heroes could not kill opponents, the violence was toned down. Fatalities were changed or removed, while DC characters used heroic brutalities, non-lethal finishers that knocked out foes instead of killing them. The game experimented with new systems. Freefall combat let fighters clash while smashing through skyscrapers. Close combat added close-range cinematic strikes, and the rage meter boosted strength and broke combos. Reviews were mixed, with a Metacritic score of 72. Many fans felt Mortal Kombat had softened too much, but it still sold more than 2 million copies and became a commercial success. After Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, Midway went bankrupt in 2009. Warner Brothers bought the studio in 2010, renamed it NetherRealm Studios, and began a new chapter for the series. The team later used ideas from this crossover to help shape Injustice: Gods Among Us. In 2011, NetherRealm Studios rebooted the series with Mortal Kombat for PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and later PC. Story mode put players in the middle of a large war, switching fighters chapter by chapter. With more than 4 hours of voiced cutscenes, it felt like an interactive movie. Gameplay returned to a 2D plane as a nod to the arcade classics, but the reboot added major new features. X-ray attacks showed internal damage from heavy hits, and fatalities were more brutal and creative than ever. The roster featured 27 core fighters, including new additions like Cyber Sub-Zero and Kratos as a PlayStation exclusive. The game was praised as the perfect mix of old and new, earning an impressive 86 on Metacritic. IGN said, "Mortal Kombat is back, and it has never looked better," while Game Informer called it the finest fighting game reboot ever made. Mortal Kombat sold more than 5 million copies and won awards like Best Fighting Game at E3 and the Spike Video Game Awards. Fun fact: the reboot also brought back controversy. It was banned in South Korea for violent content and banned in Australia until an R18+ rating arrived in 2013. Germany also placed it on a list of media harmful to young people and blocked public advertising. Mortal Kombat X arrived in April 2015 on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC, built on Unreal Engine 3, with sharp next-gen visuals. It was darker, faster, and more cinematic than any Mortal Kombat before it. The game featured 33 fighters across all versions, including DLC, and each character had 3 variations that changed their moves and playstyle. Online play was a major focus. Players could join one of 5 global factions and earn points and rewards in weekly challenges. Mortal Kombat X became one of the most played fighting games of its generation, selling more than 11 million copies and building a strong competitive scene. Fun fact: one of the most memorable finishers in Mortal Kombat X is Cassie Cage's selfie fatality. After winning, she takes a selfie with her opponent and posts it on a site called Friendships. This is a nod to the friendship moves from Mortal Kombat II, which later returned in Mortal Kombat 11. If you look closely, the trending section also shows a story about a masked killer in the woods as a joke about Jason Voorhees, who became a DLC character in Mortal Kombat X. Mortal Kombat 11 released in 2019 on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, and Nintendo Switch, and later came to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S in 2020. With this game, NetherRealm Studios brought the story full circle again. They rewrote the timeline, brought back classic fighters, and created the most ambitious entry in the series. Built on Unreal Engine 3, it had sharp visuals and lifelike character models. The base roster had 25 fighters and later expanded to more than 37 through DLC. The game introduced the Fatal Blow system, which activates only at low health to help turn a match around. It also added the Flawless Block, a move that rewards perfect defense with a counter. Fatalities were more detailed than ever, showing shown fully in 4K. Because of this level of violence and gore, Mortal Kombat 11 was banned in Japan, South Korea, Indonesia, and China. It was also banned in Ukraine due to laws against communist symbols. Even with these bans, the game became a major success. In May 2020, NetherRealm released Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath, the first story expansion in the series. It continued the main story and offered 2 different endings. IGN praised Mortal Kombat 11 as the best story mode ever in a fighting game. The game sold more than 15 million copies, making it the best-selling Mortal Kombat game ever. Fun fact, Mortal Kombat 11 added guest fighters like the Joker, RoboCop, Rambo, and the Terminator. The Terminator was added to promote Terminator Dark Fate and appeared in only one other game, Gears 5. With Mortal Kombat 1 released in 2023, the universe was reborn. Set in a brand new timeline, it marked the series' jump into full next-gen gaming. Built on Unreal Engine 4, it released on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch, and PC. The story mode has 15 chapters with full motion capture, strong visuals, and smooth transitions between gameplay and cutscenes. The game launched with 23 fighters, each redesigned and revoiced for this new era. A major change is the new cameo system, which lets you call in a partner for combos, counters, and even shared fatalities. Other new features include reworked air combos and juggling, smooth cinematic transitions at 60 frames per second, and fatal blows that use both the main fighter and their cameo partner. Mortal Kombat 1 launched to strong reviews and huge hype. Many praised the smooth combat and how bold the story reboot is. It quickly became one of 2023's best-selling games, opening at number 1 in both the US and the UK. It sold more than 3 million copies in its first month, and now has passed 6.2 million, making it the best-selling fighting game of this generation, ahead of Street Fighter VI and Tekken 8. Fun fact, Mortal Kombat also found recent success in theaters, bringing the game's brutal fatalities to the big screen. The 2021 movie made $84 million on an estimated budget of $55 million. It became HBO Max's biggest film launch, and now its sequel is coming in 2026 with the cast returning, Carl Urban as Johnny Cage, and a third movie already in the works. Since 1992, Mortal Kombat has shocked, inspired, and pushed gaming forward with its brutal style and iconic fatalities. More than 100 million copies later, it stands as the best-selling fighting game franchise in the world. Hope you enjoyed the evolution of Mortal Kombat, and subscribe for more weekly evolutions.